what's up, Kansas City? I have plenty to say. From dilapidated buildings on Prospect to the crack houses on Askew, the Country Club Classic, the World Parkway, our streets are war zones. And the Attorney General has stepped away. The Chief of Staff have all went on lunch break. We're dying for you to save us. With each death, we want to know what's up and why our city can't be safe. So if you can hear me, Kansas City, please let me know what's up. I usually try to start off with something positive, but I decided to do some poetry today.
That's right.
We are doing Speak On It Special Edition with Lucas. How are you doing?
It's good to be with you. I'm happy to talk to you, and that was powerful. And the saddest part is that every part of what you said was true.
Yeah, I wrote that about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I thought I would start off with that.
And isn't it crazy how you could have written that 2 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and it's still the same?
Yeah. I wanted to make sure, because usually I start off with like some positive quotes,
Right.
But I wanted to start off with that. So we're gonna get right into the questions because I know it's a lot.
Yeah. Hey, I'm ready to answer. Right.
Right. So give a little brief background to everyone. Like,
Yeah.
who is Quinton?
Oh man, it depends on the day you ask it, right? Right now, so I'm born and raised in Kansas City. I'm from this community. I'm for it. I was raised by a single mother. I've actually never met my father. We moved around all the time. We're homeless, part of my upbringing. Stayed at places including Parade Park, 41st in Indiana, 52nd in Bell Fountain, 66th in Askew, 82nd in Troost. Right. We bounced around. We off of Blue Ridge for a minute, just do that South Kansas City thing for my South KC Grandview listeners. And so, I think it's been, thank you. It was an interesting trajectory I had in life, but education, made a difference for me. Went on to college in St. Louis, law school, upstate New York, and then I managed to come back to Kansas City as a lawyer. And since that time, I've been getting involved. First as somebody who was volunteering as a teacher in prisons. I did that in a maximum security facility, which was an interesting time. And I think mainly talking to the men in that facility, men of all races, seeing how many of our long-term social issues that we have in our community lead to so many challenges in their lives and then challenges for their whole families. So that inspired me to run for office. I've been on city council for a while, and now I have the chance to try to make a difference as mayor of this city.
So what when you say was when you found your knack for, I guess you say when you say you started to think like this is the direction I'm going to go as far as politics? Because I mean, if you went to law school, you would definitely do something else.
Yeah.
Was there something when you were younger where you were like, I want to be a politician?
I think when I looked out, so I didn't have I had a few black male mentors, none in my home. And in fact, I had like anti-mentors, right? My mom's boyfriends and all that sort of stuff. So I saw what behavior not to model, fortunately. But somebody who made a difference for me was my uncle, who was in the Air Force. And, I didn't even see him that much. But he would come back to Kansas City every now and then, talk about people who can make a difference. And I think he was like, no, you want to make sure you're one of the powerful people, because he was always somebody who was kind of just that line airman, right, who had to deal with folks always telling him what to do and who to be. And he was like, you want to be in charge, right? You want to make a difference and look out for people like us. And so probably since I was maybe 10 years old or so, I've been thinking, okay, I can try to make that difference. And that's what kind of led me down that path. And then another thing I saw was when I looked at my community, I always thought it wasn't enough. This is something I figured out even by high school. It wasn't enough that I succeed. I think by the time I was graduating, I was like, okay, I've seen a path where I can make money, I can do all right, I can get out. But I think what I wasn't catching was how do I lift other people up while I'm doing it. And that's what I've been about since.
So what would be some advice you give to someone who is thinking about running for office?
Be tough as a first thing. I mean, this has been a tough race. I turn on the TV, I see attack ads with myself. They're like, Quinton, and all that. I'm like, dang, they ain't even being. The first thing that you really need to do beyond being tough is remember your core reasons for doing it. Yep. For doing it, that gets you through every single day. So people ask me, hey, of course I am, because the reason I'm running isn't, for my ego. If it was for my ego, then yeah, I'd be like all broken and in a corner. But I'm running to change something. I'm running to make it so the child who was born in the circumstances I was, of which many children even more are born today than in the mid-1980s, I'm running to make sure that we have more opportunities for a child like that. Full stop. And so my thing is, they can throw mud at me, they can do whatever. I still think we'll win this race based on that message, based on that core belief.
Okay. I also want to put out there, this is not an endorsement.
Yeah, I understand.
Lucas, basically, I wanted to make sure the community knew about the candidates. I reached out to Ms. Justus people. Maybe possibly can have them in this week. I'm not for sure, but I know they're busy. Quinton's busy, but I'm glad he made time for me today.
Right.
And of course, we're on KUHW and the first urban community station, so make sure you like the page. We're going to get into the second part of the questions. So, I had some community questions.
Yep.
And I wanted to reach out to the community because, of course, that's who you're going to be serving. So, one of the first questions was affordable housing in Kansas City. They said, what are some ways that you would take their approach to make affordable housing for Kansas City, because 40% of the people in the area rent. And, of course, as we know, rent is steady rising. So what are some things that you will possibly work on to help with that?
Yeah, a few different things. One, we need to, I think, build more wealth, particularly in the black community, and how do I plan to do that? There are a lot of people that are, there are probably some people watching or listening who of $700, $800 a month, when they could instead, if they were able to get a mortgage, be paying on a similar, let's say you're renting a house somewhere, $550, $500, and then you could actually get some ownership out of it. But what's the challenge usually? We don't get good lending in our community.
Yeah, I think it's just the black community.
Right. We're actually right. It's around the country. Although I will say, redlining in different terms still exists in certain areas, because when you look at access to capital, I mean, it is really cut off, I think, in certain areas of our city. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that the city has funding to fill gaps in connection with, folks who are trying to get their homes, trying to own homes, trying to stabilize neighborhoods, not move around, not deal with bad landlords, that sort of thing. Second thing I think we need to do is make sure that we're actually funding more home repair. Minor and major home repair. There are a lot of folks. I was walking the neighborhoods with an 87-year-old the other day, 30th in Indiana, and she was talking about how she's been living in the same neighborhood since 1957, but has a few $1,000s of repairs to do and not a lot of money coming in. And the problem is, once a lady like that leaves her house, often those houses become abandoned, right? They create some of the problems we see in our communities. If we ever tear down the house, it becomes a vacant lot with dumping and trash, and perpetuates that problem. So what I'm about doing is actually seeing that we have a chance to I think, really try to make sure we're doing major home repair, both for senior citizens but also for younger folks, because issues there. Those are two. And then the final one that I'd like to see is more assistance to tenants all the time. I think a lot of people, I felt this growing up, right? We became homeless for a while because mama didn't have $200 one month, right? And by being homeless, that affects her credit history, her ability to rent, creates greater costs. You're talking about thousands of dollars of costs when everyone could have saved money just having $200 there to help somebody out. And so that's what, those sorts of things are what I've been working on, and they say, well, you haven't found a funding source yet for it. Yeah, because it's hard, right? We're trying to find $75 million to fund it. I'm proud of our efforts to do that. And that's something that we will do with me as mayor.
Also, let's talk about poverty in the city. I know that's not necessarily something, it's more almost a state or a national issue, but what are some things that you might can do to help curb that a little bit in Kansas City?
We always have these big ribbon cuttings and excitement about projects like the Center project off Bannister, right? But as we know, not a lot of those jobs are going to people who were experiencing poverty or who have before. Not enough of those jobs are going to people of color. And I have significant concerns with that. We need to completely retool how we do incentives. Right now we do incentives for big real estate tax breaks that benefit just a few people, particularly developers. What about those small businesses? Those businesses that have employees ranging from, 15, right? That's where most of the jobs are. That's where most of the jobs in our community are. I want to make sure that we're actually thinking about new ways to incentivize that person who wants to open a shop at 36th and Benton, right? Or that person who wants to actually do something different. Giving them tax breaks on things like sales taxes, on things like earnings taxes, that sort of thing, to make sure we're really encouraging business growth in the core of the city.
Where do you stand with work? Well, you kind of answered this already. Where do you stand with working with local developers and construction companies when it comes to city-funded projects and redevelopment of urban?
Yeah, I mean, right, I mean, we get. We need to do more work in connection with us, right? We can't make it easy for them to just say, hey, we're coming here, we're going to come try to change something, and then we don't actually get what we need out of it. And so my view is that we need to do more work in community benefit agreements to make sure we're holding that through.
And gentrification, that is a rising concern with a lot of citizens. What are some ways you could, as a mayor, help to kind of curb that over? Is that even possible?
It is. It absolutely is. Right? And if you've been to Beacon Hill, it's a nice area where government tore all the houses in the old neighborhood and tore up a bunch of other stuff. And there's $600,000-$700,000 now that was once not. And to me, it's kind of an issue of, don't do that, right? Don't exacerbate issues in our communities already. How do we avoid that? It is in fixing up houses, house by house, not in tearing down whole neighborhoods. It is in making sure that we're working with other taxing jurisdictions, the school district, the public library, the county, and saying, how can we freeze people's property taxes, right? Particularly if they've been there for a long time as new folks are coming in. I mean, these are the sorts of things that you've seen in lots of other American cities, and frankly, it's something that, I've been proud of us at least starting on, but we need to be a lot more impactful on it. But one thing that we can't do is to demolish our whole community, right? The city, it's funny, people talk about me like, you haven't found a source for housing money yet, but we found a source of $10 million to tear down a bunch of houses, primarily in East Kansas City. That's a problem for me. We didn't find any money for help a lot of these brothers and sisters that have small companies where they can actually buy up some houses and fix them up and give people jobs, right? Those are the things that we've been failing to do, and that's a big issue to me.
Okay, public transportation. What are some ways that you can help improve public transportation specifically? There's some areas where the benches are, they're broken down.
Yeah.
Then on top of that, I know this is a bigger issue. I know compared to some other larger cities, bus routes.
Yeah.
Run that off the along, and I know we have the train thing downtown.
Yep. Streetcar.
So what are some ways that you help to plan to work on public transportation?
So if you get my flyers, the thing I say is better bus routes, right? We need better bus routes for regular people.
And some people, they work at downtown.
Right. My sister's one of them. So my sister lives in far east KC off of Raytown Road, right? Has a job downtown getting paid way too little. Jackson County Courthouse, like $12 an hour, which is better than a lot of people make, but still, I think the county should be paying people. Right, exactly. And so she took the bus for ages. And then, right, they cut her route. And so what that meant was that, like, people on that east side community, and she moved over there to get her kids into the Raytown schools, right? I mean, you see all of this, how kind of poverty becomes compounded. And so she ended up getting a car that's always breaking down, having to pay for parking, doing that. So I think the next 4 years, well, these last 4, 8, we've spent time talking about streetcar, and everybody's happy about that. I want to spend more time talking about how are we getting bus routes that get people who need it to work. Right. Right, exactly. Right, because you see people working second shift, third shift, working fast food, right? A lot of people in my family are doing that sort of stuff. And right now they don't, exactly. And so how are you supposed to get from, if you have a job at McDonald's, let's say on Cleaver and Troost? Right, exactly. And, I know. They really are, and they add up. And so I think that needs to be our primary focus. I would make we pay $55 million a year to ride KC, the bus company, the Metro, as I still like to call it. And I know, it's still a Metro bus to me. It's hard to break that. And what we need to do is make sure that they're investing not in studies about streetcar expansion, not in some of the other weird things they're doing, like city market economic development. Like, no. Y'all are a basic service. People who need to catch the bus should be able to catch it. We should be working on routes, particularly for the poorest Kansas Cityans. You know, we got this issue sometimes that in KC, and look, I've been blessed with a good education and all that sort of stuff. When I came back to Kansas City, I thought this was a city that was far more set up for success for like an Ivy League trained lawyer than it was for somebody who's living here and working here every day. Because it was a cool playground for me, right? Because I had money and resources and access when I got back out of school. But I'm like, well, what about my sister who's been hustling her whole life here and is trying to better her life each day, right? What can we do to make it more about them? And that's the sort of work that I think we need long term.
Can you name, I guess you could say, name some of your favorite businesses east of Truth?
My favorite business is East of Truth. So, I mean, I like to eat. So I'm gonna say M&M Bakery because, I mean, that's good, man. I thought. Yeah, of course. I mean, man, I started eating too many during the campaign, and I used to be a runner and everything. Can't even get up now. You know where I went the other day, which is new, but right over at 18th and Vine, that I'm KC store, right? You know, and I hope y'all kind of. Yeah, I got one the other day, and I like that particularly because they've been very good at kind of branding, I think, getting themselves out there, really making sure things happen. But, you know, to prove that I need to be more diverse than even I am, you know, something I've been learning in this council position is about some of the mainly like Hispanic-owned businesses on Independence Avenue. And I'm going to mess up on the name. Okay, yeah. And where did I stop at the other day? Right, exactly. Right. And like the food is good there. You can get all types of stuff in stores. So I really encourage some folks listening, if, you know, you don't get as close, and if you don't get up that way. Right, exactly. You got some sense. So I'm trying to do that because one other thing kind of on that point, I think if we're talking about a better life for everybody in Kansas City, you know, the black community, the Latino community, we need to work together on a lot of these issues.
I was talking to somebody about
you
that.
know?
Black
Right. And we don't do that enough. And I think that will hurt us politically long term. I mean, we can have some strong political power because I'll just tell you, at City Hall, it is often a fight. And, you know, I think we need to make sure that, you know, we really are working together to make sure we're enhancing our public schools. We're creating more opportunities for bus service, quality of life, access to health care in our community.
I have something about City Mayoral, but you kind of already touched on that.
Yeah.
Just share your overall vision of Kansas City under your leadership. Like, what are some ways that you plan to leave a legacy?
I don't want a single building named after me or anything like that. I don't want airports or anything. You know, it'd be interesting, but no, give me a park bench somewhere and I'll be cool. But my biggest thing is I want it to be safer here. I want, you know, 4 or 8 years later, it may take 8 years, but people to be like, wow, you know, we drove down the number of homicides. We drove down the number of shootings. Because, you know, I was at church a few weeks ago, and I'm at church every week, but Palestine a few weeks ago. And there we go. I was talking to a brother on crutches, right? And I said, hey, what happened to you and all of that? He's, you know, and he's just like, oh, I was shot, man. I'm like, dang, right? 16 years old. You know, I broke my leg at 16 running track, right? And I'm like, I mean, and you see stories and hear stories like that every day. We can't let it be that regular. Yesterday I was at a house off of Topping, and, you know, the mother and her child were saying, yeah, they're gunshots, you know, every night. And I'm like, well, been this way my whole life over in this neighborhood. And, you know, that's the sort of thing that I want to concretely change. I want people to feel like you can live in the city. You can live in the core of the city, and you can feel safe, that you don't have to get out to Lee Summit or even some folks still going out to Grandview and all of that. And that's the sort of thing that I want to leave as a legacy, a safer Kansas City. Yeah.
How do you put up with the stress of campaign?
You know, it's hard. First of all, I want to thank you for talking about self-care. I mean, we every community has different issues. One of them, particularly for men, right, is us making sure that black men are addressing self-care issues, are talking to people, a lot of black women too, who we're all working hard, taking care of families, that sort of thing. So they really do. They really do. And there's no shame in talking about it, right? I mean, it's something that we need to focus on. In terms of what I do, I don't do enough right now. You know, I used to be able to run all the time. I was even fast for a while, but, you know, you lose that real quick. Probably, I still like I'll try to read, you know, which gives me a little bit of peace. I mean, sometimes you just need to take off your phone, turn off your phone, which is hard, because if you get stuck in that Facebook world and then people coming at you and all of that, then, you know, it's
Take little breaks from
right, right.
because I'm like I like to have different
Oh yeah.
questions.
Oh yeah, that's how I caught you. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's so yeah, I mean, so I like to take breaks, and then the one other thing that I still try to do is you know, make sure I'm talking to my mom. You know, go by her house. She's in Parade Park, like I said. Yeah, yeah. You know, that's been good because it's you talk about something to keep yourself grounded, right? Whether good or bad, right? Exactly. They'll tell you what's wrong with you. They'll tell you your shoes look raggedy, right? You know, and that's helped me no matter what we've dealt with over the years.
Is there any questions on the live at all? Anybody wants to ask? Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this special edition because I know that you are busy and
We are.
this is a special speak on it. Of course, make sure you check out our website. That's prosandverbs.com. Follow us on social media. That's PROSE and verbs. And it should come up on your Instagram and Twitter. Any closing remarks for the community?
Yeah, you know, a few things. One, I think it's vital that the community get out and vote. Tuesday, June 18th. Tuesday, June 18th. Because one of the things that breaks my heart is everybody. Right. Right. 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Right. I mean, you got time. You got time. You can wake up early, get there, all of that. I mean, yeah, you get time off. You get time off, several hours off. Take advantage of it. Right. And so make sure you get out to vote. I mean, what I would say is this. You have a choice in this race between somebody, right, who I think I am, who's from the community, who's stood for the community my entire life and always will. That's why I'm running. I'm not running to get rich, right? I'm not running to be in power. I'm not running because of something I've been doing for a while. I'm running to make change. I'm running to make sure that we are safer, that we're creating more affordable quality housing, to make sure that we're getting those better bus routes, and frankly, to make sure that we have a voice at City Hall, not just faces and a little bit of representation. I want us to have power, and that's what we need to, and that's why I think it's important to vote Quinton Lucas on June 18th. If you have questions, find me on Facebook. I'm easy to catch, and all of that. Right. Right. So please do. So make sure to vote June 18th and get 5 other people to vote. 5 other people. Make sure they know. And if they say that don't make no difference, it makes a difference. Trust me, it does. Because it really does. Yeah. Right. Right. Exactly. That's exactly right. And that's where your dollar's going. That's, you know, where we're making real choices how it's spent. And, you know, yeah, we may not, Missouri's probably going to go for Trump again, right? In Kansas City, we can make great differences and make good policy to help our people. So that's me in a nutshell.
Well, thanks for tuning in if you were listening. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. We're going to go ahead and sign off. And again, this was not an endorsement for Mr. Lucas. It's just
That's right.
informational interview so everyone knows who is running and you are informed. Like I said, we are working on possibly getting Ms. Justus in. I'm not sure if we will or not because the election is next week.
Next Tuesday.
Kansas City. This is your girl Serenity with a special part 2 of Speak On It. And we were in Monday. We had Quinton Lucas in the studio. And this time we have Darren Story. He is with the Julius Justice campaign. We want to make sure that you guys are informed and you will know about both candidates for the election on June 18th. So we're going to get right into it, and we're going to introduce him. Mr. Story, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, again, my name is Darren Story. I am a lifelong resident of Kansas City, grew up in 3rd District. I grew up in the 18th Street Vine District, actually. Graduate from Lincoln, class of 1982. I have never lived in a suburb in this town. I've only lived in one suburb in my entire life, and that's when I moved to Detroit because I didn't know what was going on in Detroit with the city. But I am an urban dweller, so the city means a lot to me. I still reside in the 3rd District proudly. Okay. Let's see. I'm just a regular guy. I mean, as far as I'm not a political hack or a pundit, so I'm not here to do hatchet jobs. I just want to. I'm really kind of her surrogate from a sense that I am a regular citizen that lives in a neighborhood that will be impacted by this race. Okay. And I'm just willing to speak on her behalf and also talk to... You want to speak on it? I want to speak on it. Hey, see, that's clever. That's good. But you know, I care about this town, and I'm involved in the community heavily in my own right. I'm a radio personality here on Magic 107.3. Okay. So I do a lot of work in the community, and I'm just engaged with her because her legislation in the state Senate has impacted my life because it impacted my son's life, who was incarcerated for a time. Wow. And if it wasn't for the work that she did in the state Senate for nonviolent offenders, he possibly could still be in jail right now. So that had an impact on me personally. So I think anytime that a candidate can impact you personally, it's gonna make you stop and think, well, let's see what else is under the hood. Mm-hmm. And so far, I believe that Jolie is my candidate, and I'm willing to speak on her behalf if I can.
Okay. So how does one become a surrogate for a candidate? Like, I'm just curious. I mean,
you know what? That's a really good question because when I got the email from Amy, who works on our campaign, I didn't really realize I was a surrogate till I got the email. But she just asked me, say, would you be willing to do this? And Jolie would definitely be here. I just want to say that. I mean, her right now. Yeah,
it's the week. Before, not even a full week before election.
I know it is helter skelter right now, and everybody's pulling on them, and you know, I can definitely appreciate the fact that Quinton was able to make it for your show, but as we all know, I'm sure he's had to say no to some other things, just like she has to say no to other things because it gets crazy right now. So I don't envy either one of them right now, to be honest with you. That's why I would never run for public office. I just know my limitations, but. I think I became a surrogate because I've just kind of put myself out there. I was in her commercial. Okay. And so that was kind of like the first step. And I have never, ever publicly endorsed anyone in my life. Okay. She is even the first person I put a yard sign in my yard. I keep my politics mainly to myself. Okay. And especially now because it's hard to talk to people about politics without it becoming a big deal. Mm-hmm. And everybody wants to be right. Everybody wants you to agree with them. And that's why we have the dysfunction we have in our nation right now, is because we have kind of lost the ability to communicate with one another civilly. Right. And we just to agree to disagree. And to agree to disagree, yes. Yeah. So that's a little bit about me. And so I that's how I became a surrogate, and I'm going to do the best that I can, and hopefully be informative and entertaining at the same time.
Okay. Next question wouldn't apply. Okay, citizen questions. Like these questions that I got were literally questions from citizens from Facebook.
Sure.
I'm pretty interactive on there, and I ask specific people. Most of them are active in the community, so these are questions from people who are out doing the footwork and being involved in their community. So, affordable housing. From Ms. Justus' standpoint, do you have any background on what her plans are to make housing more affordable? As we know, 40% of citizens in this area rent, and rent is increasing. It's skyrocketing. So what are some things that you know of that she's going to do to help with that problem?
Well, I think Jolie understands that it's an issue. We keep talking about it every election cycle, and nothing seems to change. And I think Jolie understands that this is not just a public problem, but it's a private problem. Okay, so you have developers who come in and they put up a lot of market rate housing. I live in the 64109. So Truce is very close to me, and there's a lot of development going up on Truce. Now, we want that development because that creates jobs, that brings up people's property value, but at the same time, we have to find a way to mix it up. Right. Why can't we have market rate housing and affordable housing coexisting with one another? It is happening.
Yeah, it's a lot of places.
Yeah, it's happening in other parts of the country.
A lot of people don't know some of the lofts downtown, or some of them are affordable, some of them aren't.
Right. So Jolie is about bringing people together. So I think what you're going to see Jolie do is talking to developers and in the private sector and looking what we can do in the public sector to kind of begin to talk through how we can invest and it makes sense.
Right.
Developers develop to make money. We know that. That's what they do. At the public's level, we are here to serve. They are here to serve us and create those answers to those problems that we have. I think Jolie's biggest strength is her ability to bring people together and collaborate. So whether it's a public-private project, whether it's looking at other organizations who are willing to, say, property managers who have properties that they manage and want to create more opportunities and to create affordable housing in their portfolio of properties. And talking to the owners of those properties and those investment properties and saying, hey, would you be willing to take a section of your portfolio and make it affordable for different people? But those are the type of things that I think she's going to be bringing to the table, and it's all about bringing people together and starting to have the conversation.
That's true. We're going to switch to, we mentioned a little bit about gentrification. Do you know what her plans are to work to merge basically east of Truce, west of Truce, in areas that have been affected by gentrification?
Well, one of the things that she has discussed with me was she mentioned back when Mayor Kay Barnes was the mayor of Kansas City back in the early 2000s, mid-2000s. Yeah. And, well, I think I was in my 30s when she was mayor. Not anymore.
Because I would say, was he an adult when Kay Barnes was? Okay.
She's talked about adopting something that Mayor Barnes did, where she had all the developers that had projects going on in Kansas City, had them at her office to find out what they needed. I think that if you have all the developers that are doing things in front of you, you can begin to have that conversation about the gentrification issue. Again, we want development.
Yeah.
You know, there's a question one out there that's talking about that's going to cap development at 50%, at the tax breaks and things like that. Well, if we have a developer that comes in and wants to do affordable housing, that makes us less attractive if we cap it. So it's one of those things like the chicken or the egg. Everybody's excited about this potential question passing. Well, all of a sudden, what about the developers that were before this question passes decided that they wanted to do stuff on the east side? That changes everything. Yeah. So we become less attractive. So again, I think getting developers together that are doing projects, especially if they're targeting the east side, making a case for why they should also include affordable housing to stem off the gentrification idea, because we know things are going to change.
Yeah.
But looking at other communities too across the country that are finding ways to mix it up. We know we need restaurants. We need commerce, right? If we have people, we have rooftops. We got to have it where people can go and get a loaf of bread, get a gallon of milk, go fill up their car at the gas station.
In their neighborhoods.
Yeah. And I was at the 8 cent sales tax development meeting yesterday, where of course lots of projects come in front of that group and get funded. And one of the projects that I testified for was the Enterprise Village ecosystem that's going to basically South Vine. So we're talking about from 19th and Vine to 25th and Vine, and then from Woodland to Paseo.
Okay.
So, and that is right where I grew up. I grew up at 1621 East 22nd Terrace. Well, what I explained to them last night during my testimony was I named 10 black businesses that were in 3 blocks of my house when I grew up.
Okay.
I could go to the drugstore. I could go to the grocery store.
How many of them are still there?
None. None. And that's what this project is going to do. It's going to bring back commerce, 36 rooftops to start. They're going to, renovate the castle right there at 21st and
yeah,
Vine.
I know they've been trying to work on that for a while.
Yeah, well, finally, I think it's about to happen now. You know, so this funding is going to be about that, getting that infrastructure going and everything like that. But those are the kind of projects that we're talking about. Now, you can look at it as gentrification, or you can look at it as a new beginning. I look at it as a new beginning. Now, what we had when I was growing up pales in comparison to what this is going to be. We have to understand that also part of this evolution as we build or rebuild or revitalize, we have a different group of people that are interested in the urban core than we had 20 years ago. And what we're talking about is our white counterparts. They want to live in the city, especially young people. They like the city. They want the energy of the city. And so moving to Vine Street does not scare them. We don't even have the same mentality about it because they want to be down. They want to be urban dwellers. They want to jump on a bus, go to work, jump on the bus, or jump on one of those birds, those crazy things that people, these scooters. That's what they want to do now. So the mentality of people now and wanting to live in the urban core has totally changed. I can remember when I was growing up, if I saw a white person walking down Paseo, that was crazy.
There's still some areas where people will be like, what is going on here? But part of that is, like you said, people are moving into the city.
People are moving in. So the question is, again, having a leader that understands the demographics and how the demographics are changing and how we can't close our eyes and continue to push people eastward and more eastward. And I think Jolie has her hand on the pulse of that we're not trying to displace people. And that's what I believe is going to come out of her administration is that, hold up, stop the press. We're not trying to displace people. We have to find a way where all things can coexist and all things can be true.
That's true.
I think that's what she believes.
Then on top of that, I think a lot of times people don't understand exactly what gentrification is. I mean, like you said, they're rebuilding, and sometimes you get into that point of there might be some fluctuation of the price of the rent there.
Right.
And what happens is, gentrification is about, it's not just race, it's class as well. It's a combination of that issue. So, 18th and Vine area, since you already talked about south of there, what is her plans that you know of for the 18th and Vine area? That area, of course, is artistic and historic for our city. What is some things that she might have planned for that area?
I think one of the things that Jolie wants to do more than anything is make things easier for people, like to have a business. Right now, if you were a business owner and you wanted to open a business in Kansas City, it is like pulling teeth.
Some people literally say they go to the outskirts, or they go to Kansas, or they go,
Well, 18th and Vine has missed a lot of opportunities with restaurateurs and over the years. There was a time when Sylvia's out of Harlem wanted to open a restaurant at 18th and Vine. This was a long time ago, but it didn't happen for whatever reasons. Can't tell you, I wasn't there, but she was looking at opening up another satellite restaurant here in Kansas City. Now, how huge would that have been?
Yeah, it would have been very huge.
I don't know if have you been to Sylvia's in Harlem?
No, I've heard of it, though.
Oh, my God.
I've heard of it.
She puts her foot in it. It's crazy. So that would have been an iconic restaurant right down in 18th and Vine.
Yeah.
I also believe, too, I think going back to her ability to bring people together is that you've got lots of interest down there. You know, you've got the Black Economic Union, you've got the 18th Viant Historic District.
You got the Negro
you got the Negro Leagues, you got the American Jazz Museum, and one thing that I think she will do is get people to working in concert with one another. Okay. Because when you're in a district, what happens to your neighbor matters to you.
Oh, yeah.
It's a domino effect. Mm-hmm. If somebody closes their doors, that impacts your business. Yeah. I also believe that I'm going out on a limb.
Okay.
This is my own opinion.
Okay, so your opinion.
This is my own opinion.
Opinion.
Right, this is my opinion. This is my opinion, Jolie. I really think that the city should get out of the nightclub business.
Oh, wow, okay.
The Blue Room is could be a major deal. And
what he means by that, a lot some of those clubs down there, mm-hmm. they're actually city properties.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't know that.
Right. And so that's my unsolicited advice. Again,
and there's people who are experts in the nightclub business. They've been doing entertainment for years.
It should be managed by an entertainment entity.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
I do believe the Gym Theater should not be dark most nights. It should be lit. There should be a show there.
Okay.
It is a tremendous venue.
Did they used to have back in the day? They used to have regular shows at the gym.
Well, they did, and they had movies there too. So they had
that's
shows
what I'm
and
saying.
movies.
I heard that.
Yep.
Like it was regularly like you can go down to the gym and watch a movie.
It was lit.
Yeah.
Most nights it was lit. So if you've put a lot of money, we put a lot of money into the district. This is again my personal opinion. I haven't talked to Jolie about this. But I really do think that this is off the cuff. This is just, and because I'm passionate about that part of town because that's my stomping grounds. Mm-hmm. I really think that they should look at bringing in an outside management entity to manage the entertainment properties down there, i.e. the Blue Room and the Gym Theater. Okay, that's just my thought.
Well, we're talking about the little bit of the history of Kansas City. I know you said there was a point in time when Gym Theater used to have movies. Mm-hmm. They had a running joke on social media a little while ago talking about I'm XYZ old. I put something like I'm old enough to know Hypermart on 87th and across the street from Sears.
Hillcrest,
I'm that old. So what like I don't know if you want to tell your age, but like
no, I'm good. I'm 50. I'm 53.
Like what is something that was occurring in Kansas City that you know?
I'm old. I actually responded to that on Facebook. So I put a picture of Municipal Stadium where the Chiefs and Royals used to play on 22nd
they used to play
in Brooklyn.
At the
22nd in Brooklyn.
Really?
I grew up 3 blocks from that stadium.
On 22nd,
right behind
Brooklyn?
Lincoln High School.
Where did people park at?
Everywhere. My brothers used to make money parking cars.
Oh.
We had a vacant lot next to our house, and so we would park cars $1 a car.
Wow.
Now you know how much it costs to park at Arrowhead now?
Was it $20, $30, $40? I'm more of a Royals fan than a Chiefs fan.
I think it's $42 to park at Arrowhead.
For one car?
I think one car.
Last time I went, I think it was like 30
That's
something.
Insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. Wow.
So my brothers would park cars for $1 a car, and people would walk to the stadium from our house. It's 3 blocks.
Wow. So when did the shift happen? I mean, I'm like, well, when did the shift happen where it went all the way out to the east like that?
In 1967, and H. Robardo was the mayor back then. The stadium was dilapidated. Municipal Stadium had been around since close to the turn of the century. It's a very old park, and it only started with one level, and then they had to build on top of it. So when we got a pro baseball team, the Oakland Athletics, they expanded the stadium, but it was time for a new stadium because we could squeeze through the turnstiles and get in and sneak in. That's how my brothers and I used to sneak into games, and the usher would be like, "Y'all go find a seat," because that's the way it was back then. But it was time for a new stadium. So that was a thing. What we did was revolutionary, having the 2 stadiums side by side. When at the time, pro teams were doing what they call multi-purpose stadiums, so you could play baseball and football in them. The Kansas City was very innovative in putting those stadiums side by side. So that was, and it was supposed to have been a rolling roof.
Yeah, I think they're still. Were they still working on that?
The city. See, he remembers that.
Yeah, I remember hearing about the rolling roof.
The rolling roof, and they wouldn't fund it.
They were saying that was the issue as far as us ever having a Super Bowl.
That's right. That's right. Yeah,
because we don't have a
weather.
dome.
Yeah, we don't have a dome. So. maybe one day.
Yeah.
You may see it.
Hopefully one day soon.
You're
Hopefully
young.
we'll
You may
get
see
there.
it.
You're right. Hopefully we'll get there.
So that's a little history lesson, y'all. I mean, you just
well, I
know.
was just curious because I was just like, wait a minute, because when you're talking about some of the different spots in the city, you're like, I didn't know nothing about this.
Well, I'm so old. Well, I'm so old that on Vine Street there were 2 grocery stores within 2 blocks of one another.
What?
Dry cleaners, barbershop.
You won.
Drugstore, everything. That's how old I am. And we even had a social club, the San Susie Social Club. It was kind of like a pool hall social club where they had dances and stuff down there. And we had a doctor's office. Wow.
So that's the type of things we're talking about as far as revitalizing that
That's
area.
what we want back, right?
It's it's a lot of places that are vacant. Public transportation. Let's talk a little bit about public transportation. What are some ways that Ms. Justus plans to improve on that? I know you said that's one of the big things.
She is a self-proclaimed transportation fanatic. Okay. And she will tell you that she is a fanatic.
So she personally gets on the transit?
Sure. Okay. Now Jolie openly has supported streetcar and streetcar expansion. Okay. But she is interested in every way we move. Mm-hmm. Whether it's even going down to this, having adequate sidewalks and streets, because that's transportation too. We walk, we drive, we ride our bikes. So any way we can move, she's interested in. What she's also interested in, and realizes that has to happen, is this has to be a regional conversation. And what I mean by regional is that the metropolitan area, depending on who you talk to, is comprised of 15 counties. Yeah. And it comprises of over 2.1 million people.
Yeah. And the bus goes into, Kansas a little bit.
Just a little bit.
It goes into Independence. It doesn't. It's not just affecting Kansas City.
Right. So you have 2 states, 15 counties, 2+ million people. And transportation is probably one of the things that is keeping a lot of people from staying here. Mm-hmm. Yep. Companies moving here. Yep. We get a lot of looks from different companies who want to bring jobs to this town, and then they say, well, we're going to build out here, and the next question is, well, how would our workers get here? Yep. Mm-hmm. Now, for those people who have never been anywhere else, because there are people that don't go anywhere. They haven't traveled. Chicago.
Yep, that's one of the first places I brought up was Chicago.
Minneapolis, which is a town that's very much like us as far as size.
I actually have not been. I've been through it. But
they have an amazing light rail system there now.
Oh, okay.
Now, they don't have 2 states, but they do have 2 cities right next to one another, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Right. We could learn something from them. Okay. And I believe Jolie's, one of her missions, it's one of her things that she wants to get done in her first 4 years. Okay. It's one of the things that she wants to get done is us to at least be on the road of figuring out our transportation situation. She's going to be working hard with the KCATA, Ride KC, trying to figure out and get people to the table to have a regional conversation. Mm-hmm. If we were able to get around this town, everybody wins.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean, I would totally not drive. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just don't have the capability of that here. Really, depending on what time you're trying to go somewhere.
When I go to New York Serenity, I jump in a cab or jump on the subway, and I'm there 15 minutes. Her goal is to have people at least 15 minutes or less from where they need to get to. Now that's a very aggressive goal.
Oh yeah, that is.
But she's a big thinker. Mm-hmm. That's what she does. She, the whole idea of, shoot for the stars, land on the moon. Mm-hmm. That's Jolie Justus. So she thinks big, but she has to get people together that's willing to think big with her. And I think that she inspires that type of thought when she gets to talking about these things. And transportation is a big thing for her. Yeah. It's slowing us down as a city as far as
it is. As far as growth, it is.
Growth, it is. And if you care about that, right now, some people don't, and we understand this. Just like the airport, people didn't care about that. What's wrong with our airport? Well, we
if
like
you've been to other airports, you know what's wrong with it.
Yeah, we like our airport because we can get out our car, get on the plane.
What I don't like is getting my drink and then I gotta get rid of my drink when I give up. Mostly,
right.
You know what I'm saying?
So that's a little thing, right? But that's an inconvenience, right?
Yeah, other airports you don't
have to do that.
That's not an issue, right?
You do not have to do that. So for those people that were not proponents of the airport, obviously, it's just like a lot of things. When we did Power and Light, I used to tell people, Power and Light's not for us. I mean, we can enjoy it, but it's for people that come here.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's why we the tax was set up for rental cars and hotels to help fund that. Now, people will get into the deal we had with Cordish and all that. I mean, that's old news. It's over.
Yeah.
It's done. But the Power and Light District is not for necessarily Kansas City and per se. It's for us to be attracted. Exactly. Mass transit, though, is different. That is for us.
Yeah, that is for us. Definitely.
That's for everybody.
Okay. I guess we have some questions out for the Facebook Live. Somebody asked, what happened to the $27 million for 18th and Vine? You want to touch on that, or do you know?
I cannot speak on that.
You can't speak on it?
I cannot speak on it. See, we just came up with something. We just can't. What I will tell you is that Jolie's campaign, and I believe her tenure as mayor will be where she is trying to bring City Hall to the neighborhoods.
Okay.
So the ivory tower that exists when you have a city official, a leader, accessibility. Jolie is going to make herself available and accessible to people to ask those questions. What happened to the $27 million for 18th and Vine?
Yeah, because I know that is a question that's kind of.
Yeah, and 18th and I tell you what, I will try to find that out for you. So, Serenity, here's what I want you to do.
Okay.
Send me an email saying, hey, some people asked about this, and then on your next speak on it, you can tell people this is the answer that we got. I can ask her personally to find out for that, because that's another thing that I love about Jolie is that she'll tell you she doesn't know, but then she also tell you I'll find out.
Okay.
And that type of accessibility is, I think, one of the reasons why last week she walked my neighborhood with about 7 or 8 homeowners, and we walked around our neighborhood, and she was just listening. Look at the code violations.
Right.
Look at the street. Look at the cracked sidewalks. And she was taking pictures of these things, and I was just like, wow, that's the kind of mayor I want.
Right. Then there was mention about, will she get the streetcar on the east side? That kind of went into what you already said.
Yes.
As far as the goal is to work on improving transportation throughout the whole city, not just a portion of the city, correct?
That's true.
Okay.
I think when you look at the streetcar, you have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
You have to begin.
And that's going to take years to do, as far as with the tracks, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, one thing that a lot of people don't know is there is 300 miles of unused rail in this town, because this was a big train town.
Oh, okay.
300 miles of unused rail. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people, there's been some studies made, and this was actually probably 10, 12 years ago, that we had enough unused rail in the city that we could do a rail network and make something work, both on the Kansas and Missouri side.
Wow.
So, so those are possibilities that are out there.
Trying to get that passed also was.
Well,
I know
that's hard, and also the regional conversation mean you have to get a whole nother state to buy into what you're doing. The last time that Kansas and Missouri got together on something was the bi-state tax that fueled the renovation of Union Station.
Okay.
That was 1998, 1999. We see how Union Station has transformed that area.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And so that worked. Now, if we can get both states to come together again, and
that would be huge.
That would be huge.
Yeah.
And
because you do have a lot of people who live in Missouri and commute to Kansas for work, et cetera.
That's right. So I think that she is the person that can really get people to have that conversation. Not have it just because it's good optics, but have a serious conversation where people roll up their sleeves and say, hey, let's talk about how we can get this done. And let's talk about the reality is everybody wants something out of it for them. So let's talk about what do people need? What do people want out of this to support something like this?
Okay. We'll go into what are some of your favorite businesses on the East of Truth? Actually, I guess it would be some of Ms. Justus' favorite businesses East of Truth.
I can tell you one that I know. Well, two. Very fond of Ruby Jeans.
Okay.
Juicery, and very fond of Thelma's Kitchen. Right there at 31st and Truth.
Okay.
And
So
then,
Ruby Jeans, Chris Good, I'm familiar.
Chris Good, good guy, and what he's done with bringing that here is amazing, and also
Juice on Truth,
Juice on Truth, right? And then Thelma's Kitchen, of course, is the Kansas City's only donate what you can cafe, and it does amazing things right there on the corner of 31st and Truce, and all people, different ilks and socioeconomic backgrounds can all eat together in one place, in a clean place, in a clean environment, place where everyone can feel dignified in their pursuits. And if you don't have any money, that's okay.
Right.
So those are the type of things that I think that really speaks to who Jolie is as a person.
Okay. And then poverty in Kansas City. This would actually be the last one until we go into like her legacy. But what are some things that she's working on to eradicate poverty in Kansas City?
Well, I think that what Jolie is going to be looking at very closely and attentively is equity, right? Okay. So poverty is, first of all, generational. Okay? Yeah. It's a cycle.
Yep.
Poverty also stems from trauma. Okay?
It can, yep.
Trauma stems from violence or transitness, meaning we expect children to go to school and learn, but the night before they didn't have anything to eat, or they may have witnessed some type of trauma via violence, in the abuse in their own home. So the affordable housing thing comes back into this because we have to find a way to keep people in place. And if you keep people in place, that means they can keep their job. They don't have to move around, because it's just like when you hire someone at your company. It actually costs, and if they don't last 90 days, it costs you more money to replace them.
Yeah, I did a thesis about employee
Isn't that amazing?
Turnover
Turnover is expensive. Well, guess what? Turnover or being transient and not being stable because of poverty is expensive too.
Yeah.
It's not just expensive to the person going through it, but it's also expensive to the system. When we keep people in the system, it also creates where you can't have a history in order to, when you finally find a place that's nice and you want to get into it, you've got a job, but for whatever reason, your credentials don't allow you to get into it because, wow, you've lived 6 places in the last 18 months. I mean, what is this all about? Because people still have to have standards.
If your credit score is not a certain level.
Poverty has so many layers. So to me, I think it starts, and Jolie's going to be looking at what are we doing in school? How are we doing in early childhood education? Also, looking at people and trying to keep them in place by having affordable housing, by keeping them in place, keeping them stable. And then how that will impact poverty is then when you have a stable family, the kids are going to school, getting educated, you've got to move people around with transportation.
Right.
Okay, so it's all connected, right? If you can't get to your job, guess what? You're going to get evicted from your apartment because you can't work. So all these things are connected, and Jolie understands the connectivity of all these issues. So when you talk about poverty, we can talk about poverty all we want, but we
also have to talk about transportation. We also have to talk about affordable housing, etc. Okay.
Yes, Serena.
Great wrap. So, what about her legacy as a leader? What do you think? Some things she would leave as a legacy if she's elected?
Well, I can tell you, we just had a conversation not long ago about her 3 big things. Okay, and the first one, number one, was violent crime. Okay. And stemming the tide on that. And that's a whole nother bailiwick. But one of the things that she understands is I think that when she leaves, she's going to hopefully leave a more diverse police department. A police department that understands community policing. A police department that understands that you can't just go in and arrest people. You have to go into these neighborhoods and build trust. You have to talk to the people before something bad happens. They need to know who you are. The kids in the neighborhood need to know who the police are patrolling their neighborhoods, who they are, what their names are. They should have their cell phone numbers. One of the things about black people, and I hope I can be honest here, is that when we get in trouble, the last people we want to call is the police.
Oh no, we don't call them.
If we are if our life is threatened, especially our young black men, when our life is threatened, the last people they will think of calling are the cops.
Call mama, you call big mama, you call
everybody else, my cousin. Oh, I'm gonna put this gun in my pocket and go handle it myself.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
you calling everybody with this.
You calling everybody, your cousins, everybody. You know, Nene, Riri, everybody else.
Everybody, yeah.
So that's got to change. And the only way that changes is that the police department, and this is one of the things that Jolie's going to talk about, is that, hey, we got to make a commitment and an investment in building trust with our police department and our neighborhoods. Okay. So that's one big thing that she wants to leave behind. We talked about transit. Yeah. You know, like I said, she's a transit fanatic. I think if she's fortunate enough to get 8 years, I really believe that we will have at least a plan for mass transit system that works, that's going to put us in the upper echelon of cities like Minneapolis and other places, that people will be able to move around with relative ease. Like she said, I want people to be 15 minutes from wherever they need to go in this town. And that is something that I know she's very high on. And then the affordable housing thing, she wants to tackle that. And also without stifling development. Now, but we need to get things back in tune with the neighborhoods. Right. And I think the other legacy that she will leave finally is she's going to be a mayor that's seriously going to be out there in the streets. She currently, as a city council person, has this thing called office hours. Mm-hmm. It's at a local bar called Tower Tavern on Wednesdays from 4 to 6. And you can just come up there and have a beer with her and ask her anything you want.
Okay.
You know,
that's cool.
Who does that? You know, the old idea of, you look like somebody I could have a beer with, right? People say that about people. Well, you can actually go and have a beer with Jolie Justus.
Okay. And
that I admire, because that takes courage to put yourself out there, because you know there are always people who disagree with you.
Yeah.
But she puts herself out there every Wednesday, and she's ready for, why did you vote for this? Or why did you vote no for this? Or why did you vote yes for this? She's willing to take the heat. I like a politician like that wants to be held accountable for whatever decision she makes. And she doesn't come off as being someone that's always going to make the right decision. She may vote for something that blew up in her face. But at the time, she felt like it was the right thing to do for the city.
Right.
And I think that's what she always does. And every decision that she makes, everything she contemplates, she's trying to do something that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one, right?
Great.
So that's why I'm voting for Jolie Justus, and that's why you should too.
All right. Our last part. I always talk about self-care on my show, and the importance of your mental health as far as your physical health, and bringing those together. So, what does a Sarah can do to? I mean, because you're busy, you're speaking for her, you're out and about, and on top of I see you have a speaking engagement coming up.
I do.
What do you want to talk about the speaking engagement a little bit, or do you don't want to?
No. It's not about me. It's not about me.
So, what is it that you do?
You can have me back, and we can talk about me. Okay. The whole show.
All right. We definitely can do that. So, what are some things you do for self-care? Do you jog? Do you write? Do you have a?
I play golf.
Okay.
I like to play golf. I don't get the chance to play it as much as I like to, but
after Tuesday, you have more time, right?
I should have a little more time.
Okay.
But I never have a whole lot of time, to be honest with you, because I got my hands in a lot of stuff. Like I said, I'll come back on your show and tell you all the stuff I'm into.
I'm definitely down for that.
So, and I also like to do nothing, because I'm so busy.
You like to just be alone, decompress.
I think it's important just not to, sit down.
Yeah, just sit down with your thoughts.
Right.
Yeah, that's being alone.
Yeah, and
people don't understand the importance. That's that me time. When people say, I got to have a little me time, I'm kind of an empath, so I have to have a little bit more me time than most people.
Sure.
But yes, me time is very important for your sanity.
Yeah, it is. And I encourage people to take advantage of that. You have to stop music. You have to stop the world and get off every now and then. It's very important. And the world we live in, things move so fast.
It'll stress you out.
And it will stress you out. I mean, and we're connected with these things. Yeah. These things stress you out, and it's really hard for me to but sometimes I just want to
put it down,
I
turn it
turn
off.
it over.
Yeah.
Like if I turn it over and I just see the apple, if I see the screen, I get stressed out. You know.
Yeah.
But and so that's what I do. I'm very much into music.
Okay, of course,
as well, and that is something that I'm very passionate about. I love to perform. Self-care for me is actually also helping people.
Oh, okay.
So if I'm doing something that I feel like that I'm making our community better, then that gives me joy,
Right.
and I just feel like I have an obligation to try to leave this place a little bit better than I found it. And I also have 6 boys that I also want them, that's my legacy, that I want them to see and learn from me that, hey, they need to be engaged. You need to get involved. Don't stand on the sidelines.
Right.
Get involved, get engaged. If you don't like something, put yourself in a position to change it.
That's good.
And that's why everyone, please go vote. Whoever you vote for, I'm here talking for Jolie, of course, and that's who I'm going to vote for.
Yeah.
But I don't care who you are, Serenity. Exercise the right to vote. I know that our audience is probably African American. This station
it's a mixture.
It's a mixture, but I know that when I hear a black person saying they're not going to vote, I just want to slit my wrist.
Yeah.
People died, shed blood. Marched for us to have that right, and I am saddened by our turnout. So I'm imploring everyone to go out, whoever you vote for, Jolie, Quinton, whoever, just go out there and exercise that right to vote. It is important. It is imperative that people do that because people shed a lot of blood for us to have that right.
Some people get in the argument, well, they fought for our right. We don't have to vote.
No, you have a right not to.
True.
But we have a moral obligation from whence
for our
we come.
ancestors, yes. Our ancestors. Especially if you're one of the people say you pray to your ancestors or you speak to your ancestors, you definitely should be.
Absolutely.
Because I'm sure your ancestors are going to be like, what you doing?
they come down and slap you. That's what they would probably do. Like, boy, you better get your butt in that booth.
Fault. I
know. But anyway, so that's just get out and vote. Exercise your right to vote, everyone. It's important. This is an important election.
Yeah.
I mean, business is booming.
Yeah.
Business is booming in Kansas City. I know a lot of people. I think one of the things that Jolie also does, I'm getting back on it real quick, is that she is showing everybody that we all have the same problems.
Yeah.
People's trash ain't getting picked up, streets in disrepair, sidewalks or whatever. In every nook and cranny of this town, if you brought people from every district, you probably would find people saying, hey, how come we're not getting this, or how come y'all doing that? Well, I think what she's done by walking the length of this city, she's walked this entire length of the city, is that she is connecting people and saying, hey, districts 1 through 6, we all have something in common. Not one district is getting more than the next, and no, it feels that way sometimes, but we all have the same problems. But I think her administration is going to take that information that she's gleaned over the last several months in campaigning, and she's going to attack all the problems in all the districts. I think she's going to be a mayor for the entire city, and that's what we need right now.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, Mr. Story.
Did I do good? Did I do okay?
I was about to say you did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Stepping in.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
So, that is our second edition for the special edition of Speak On It, and we hope that you definitely listen to both the candidates' information and that you make sure you exercise your vote on June 18th. And of course, keep up with Pros and Verbs. That's PROSC and verbs. And we I'm going to try to merge both the videos together before Monday. Hopefully. I want to say Friday.
You're going to have 2 bald black dudes.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna try to merge both.
Which one's Quinton?
The creativity of video editing. I'm gonna put the videos together, so then that way you can just watch all the way through. You watch 1 and 2, and there you go. It's all together. So then that way you can have very informed decision before Tuesday. And of course, typically we are on Saturdays, so I know you're like, what is going on? But we wanted to make sure we did something special for the election, and that is why we're just giving you the Facebook Lives and put everything out there. Make sure you follow us. And also, if you want to follow me individually on Instagram, it's probably the best place to follow me. I do a lot of jokes. I'm pretty funny on there. And I mean, I try to be, I'm pretty lighthearted. So if you get on, you're like, what is this? I'm like, it's just a joke. All right. So it's Serenity, Serenity, and 2 underscores and the word speak. And, of course, you listen to KUAW, the dopest urban community radio station, and we are going to sign off. I'm Serenity, reminding you to spit your piece. Yeah, definitely.